Yeah, to put it in the easiest terms possible, the Supreme Court surprisingly said that Texas can't use razor wire to cut up migrants, at least temporarily, right? Because this has killed migrants. And there's this dispute
A child.
between, yeah, actually, I think it might have been two children, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
but it's been
Tortured and killed
literally,
2 kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's literally deadly and brutal. And there's this dispute between Border Patrol in Texas and then the federal Border Patrol. And basically, the Supreme Court's in a 5-4 decision said that Texas has to take that down. Texas is now defying the Supreme Court, and they're putting up more razor wire because they want to keep killing kids and be brutal. And they're basically saying that since the federal government has gone rogue and they're allowing an invasion to come into the country, they have to do
Refugees,
this.
by the way.
Right, migrants. A lot of the people who are coming here, we actually destroyed their countries. For those who don't know, with our drug war, meddling, just it's a long history, right? Can't get into that. Lots of textbooks that I can
America
recommend,
number
though.
one.
Yeah, and now other states. I think almost every single GOP controlled state with the GOP governor has basically signed a letter supporting the defiance of the Supreme Court for Texas. And there's all this talk of the South rising again, so it's getting really interesting. You know, that Civil War movie that we saw, it might just be straight up nonfiction by the time that movie releases. But you know, it's a very, very simplified version of the story. But like, they want to be as cruel as possible to migrants because that's how they win elections. Like, if you'll notice, you know, whenever there is an election year, there's this fear mongering about a caravan. I mean, they always hate immigrants, but like, they really ramp up the hysteria during election years, but they don't actually ever want to do anything to address the situation in a meaningful way, right? Like I think that the obvious solution is you have to get actual immigration reform where you have resources and people to deal with the influx of migrants. But we're to the point now where it's like, even the Biden administration is like, no, we don't even want to allow them to seek asylum, right? We just fuck them all. That's the stance of the U.S. government, but that's not enough for Republicans. Where now it's like, no, we actually want to kill them as well. Literally, like that's what's happening. But I mean, the reason why this is going to be a persistent issue is because it serves capitalism, right? These corporations that fund both Democrats and Republicans, they really benefit off of this cheap labor, right? But if you actually give amnesty to these migrants, then you can't pay them, like, you know, really, really cheaply. You actually have to recognize their rights, give them political rights, voting rights. And so it's just easier for them and cheaper for them to keep exploiting them in perpetuity. So that's why the situation is continuing. And even in a perfect world, if Democrats had all three branches of government and they were able to craft some sort of immigration reform, I have no hopes that it would be something that is actually humane, because the one humane decision is going to be the most controversial, which it shouldn't be. Like, obviously, we make them all citizens. We give amnesty to all of them. This was not controversial even when Reagan was president. He gave amnesty to millions of migrants. But all of a sudden now, we can't just not give them amnesty. We have to keep them in a perpetual state of limbo. And if they try to cross, we have to kill them. Don't allow them to seek asylum. So it's racist. America is a very racist country. Our politicians are racist and cruel. And because of this issue, because Biden isn't being cruel enough, Texas wants the Sec D. That's where we're at. Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say it would be really fucked up if America fights 2 civil wars for the right to torture non-white people, because that would kind of be the reason here, right? It's like he doesn't recognize states' rights, he doesn't recognize the ruling of the Supreme Court, and so you want to put up the barbed wire. I mean, I know it's being sold as this is about states' rights, and this is obviously about a tyrannical government, and Joe Biden is trying to overstep his powers. But I mean, when it gets down to brass tacks, that's basically it. Greg Abbott wants to put up shiny torture wires that hurt, you know, children. So
yeah, it's sad. I think that you know, legally speaking, I think Kyle Kalinske, he did a great video about this, how, like, when it comes to the jurisdiction of the federal government, like, they control the border. Texas doesn't get to usurp the federal government, right? There's the supremacy clause in the Constitution. But they're basically trying to do that. And you know, Texas wants to make it seem as if this is one of those situations where the founders envisioned, okay, this is the government going rogue. There's an invasion and they're not fulfilling their obligation to protect us. And it's just, it's hysteria on top of hyperbole. Greg Abbott's AG, the very corrupt guy, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name. Ken Paxton. He's saying, look, Biden is effectively working with the cartel because he is allowing them to bring people into the country. Like, it's so absurd. We're so far detached from reality that, like, I don't know how the situation can ever be fixed when people are so corrupt and so evil. But we will hear less about this, as is predictably the case, after the election. That's when the hysteria kind of dies down.
I was just going to say, it seems like every so-called invasion just coincidentally coincides with an election year. Like, it's
right.
Every 4 years.
Very interesting how that always happens.
Yeah.
And then midterms as well. Often. It's just like, how weird.
Yeah. It's the migrants. They schedule it that way. You can blame the migrants.
Right.
It's hard for me to follow it, like talk about immigration closely, because I just find all of it is just so there's no one that's in the national politics that seems to, at least with any kind of power, that seems to be putting forward any real message or solution, or it's even anything based in reality. Like when you talk about how even Democrats are far right on this issue, like they are, and it's just there's no one out there with a clear voice who's a leader in a leadership position.
I wonder how John Fetterman feels.
Shout out to
this.
Ole, who dropped in and she said, "Please let the guys know the show's looking extra white tonight while they're talking civil war."
Here, let me change I could change my light temperature. There we go.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think
it's really sad.
I'll do the exact opposite.
He's going powder.
There's going to be a civil war. The South will rise again. 50 state sweep from Donald J. Trump.
All right there, Tim Pool. Amazing.
Yeah, it's just it's so ridiculous. And one of the most infuriating things about this is every fucking time, Republicans do the same thing, Democrats go along with it. And this time we have John Fetterman, who's really beating the drums hard against migrants after he ran as somebody who wanted to be sympathetic towards them because his wife was undocumented. So you would think this is like about humanity. But no, he's saying, oh, there's a crisis at the border. Okay, to the extent that there is a crisis at the border, it's not like there is a literal fucking war or an invasion like they want you to believe. It's that people aren't able to have their not amnesty, their claims for asylum to get processed because oftentimes there's an influx and there's just not enough people there. You give more money, you supply more resources there, so that way there isn't this bill. It's just there are solutions to this. We don't want to find them because it serves capital. That's the bottom line.
Well, also,
and it's really
the majority
frustrating.
of illegal immigrants in the U.S., they arrive there by the magic of planes, and then they overstay their visas. That's who the majority of legal immigrants are in the United States. It's not these caravans of people smashing into the border, and the only thing that can stop them is barbed wire or anything like that. Like it's such an obvious ploy to just drum up people's already deeply held xenophobic beliefs and get them angry around election time and get them real mad. And this time, it actually could scale up to actually having like a conflict between states and federal rights, which is scary.
And the language is really what I think should give people pause. This whole talk of invasion and using words like, oh, this is like a war on our borders, a war on our people. And the way that they're trying to connect the dots to that is they're saying, well, look, they're smuggling in fentanyl. When, I mean, fentanyl arrives through legal ports of entry. Like, it's not like migrants have backpacks on. They're like, I've got my that's not the, it's just, but people don't know, right? So they just, they concoct these ideas about how, man, all of my problems are because of immigrants, right? I would be doing better if, they weren't here. Like, we're all acknowledging that like, the situation always could be better in the United States. So rather than blaming like capitalism or corruption, immigrants are just the easiest scapegoat ever. They always have been. And so that's why every 4
Hezbollah.
years...
Don't forget Hezbollah. MS-13 is teaming up with Hezbollah together for the first time to bring Chinese fentanyl into TikTok. It's happening.
Oh, well, I haven't even heard that, but I'm surprised I haven't.
All true.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
it's happening.
Wow.
Can I retire? I'm so
I would love.
tired.
I would love
None
to
of
see
you
that.
Tired of all
You
this
realize we're
fucking
all in too
bullshit.
deep.
It's just like this, you know, I feel like after how long, it's been almost 10 years of me covering this shit. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like seeing the same narratives pop up every 2 years. And how short are your memory? Like, how do voters, how do regular people fall into this shit? Especially people that are older who have seen this their entire lives, seen the same bullshit narratives every couple of years. How fucking stupid do you have to be? Like, we can, yes, there are problems with the media, of course, but at some point, take some fucking ownership over your goddamn brain. You people are fucking stupid to fall into any of this shit.
Up yours, up yours, up yours.
Sons of bitches.
Woke moralist, woke moralist, woke moralist.
I dreamed I saw my maternal grandmother. She was stroking herself absent-mindedly. I let her have her way. Her genital region was exposed. I let her have her way.